Hello there. Not too long ago I started a new series where I showed all my jazz records on vinyl. I showed then big band and swing, and it's time for part 2 of I don't know how many parts it will be. Hopefully not too many, but I guess until I don't have anything more to show, I don't know. But part 2 is coming right now, and we're going to start with the jazz genre that I have a lot of records with, but with names that many of you maybe not know all that much about, because I'm talking about Swedish jazz. I mentioned some of the names, of course, before, but I guess also there are some names that you never heard of before. So for those of you who wants to see jazz from Sweden during the old time, let's go check that right now. Like in the previous video, we're going backwards in the alphabet. This is a compilation with Swedish jazz in the 50s. Nothing unusual with that, but great jazz. As is this, you can see it every now and then in the thrift stores here in Sweden. Golden era Swedish jazz. Oops, that one has been wrong sorted. I can as well say that this is a tribute band from the 50s, a tribute band to Fletcher Henderson, led by Rex Stewart, and with a different famous name. You have Coleman Hawkins, Ben Webster, you have J.C. Higginbottom, Joe Thomas, and so on, Buster Bailey. The interesting thing about this one is, as you see this song right there, Casey Stew. That one was actually one of the first jazz songs that I ever heard, and when I was around 11 years old, and my friend Otto taught me to like jazz, and that was one of the first songs that I got copied from him, that made me discover jazz. That song was such an amazing swing, amazing blow with the horns. I love this song still to this day. So it's historical only for that, but I should put it in swing, of course. Here we have my favorite singer, as I mentioned before, Monica Zetterlund, together with Thad Jones and Mel Lewis Orchestra. As you can see, we'll see it's a lot of Swedish and American collaboration here. You have Putte Wickman, Swedish clarinetist, with late 40s, early 50s jazz. This is Bengt Arne Wallin, who is a Swedish trumpet player. Here he took Swedish folk music and turned it into Swedish modern jazz, old folklore in Swedish modern. Actually really good. And from more modern jazz to older jazz, Gösta Turner, also trumpet player, but this is 40s Swedish 40s swing. Swedanes was a Danish and Swedish collaboration with Swedish singer Alice Babs, together with Danish musicians Sven Asmussen and Ulrik Neumann. This is a live recording, really great. Jazz music in a little format, together with some humor and comic stuff. Soul Brothers at Home, see, Hammond organ. Soul Train, also a very interesting album. Soul Train was a temporary put together band that actually did this album. They were nominated for a prize in the award Jazz in Sweden in 1986, and they released this album that was actually Fletcher Henderson Reunion Band was the first band that I heard. This was the first band that I recorded from radio, Soul Train, when I heard a program of jazz news in radio then, and they played from this album and I recorded it. So it's really great funk music. It still holds to this date, but it also is historical for me. Lars Sjösten, pianist, select notes in different settings. Mixing a little more modern Swedish jazz with old jazz here, pretty good. Sam Samson and his orchestra, 1949 to 42, Swing in the Spring, might call it some kind of a little Duke Ellington feeling in it. This one is also interesting, a very early stuff that I listened to when I was younger. Scandinavian tuba jazz. The horns here is all tubas playing jazz. It's really, really great funky. Bird in Sweden. Charlie Parker on visit in Sweden with Swedish musicians. In a double album set. Paris Orchestra, Paris Orchestra, I showed this before. A band that went down to Paris to a jazz festival and became more popular overall than both Miles Davis and Sidney Bechet. Boogie Woogie pianist Charlie Norman, the Boogie Woogie Touch, double LP set. Carl-Henrik Norin and Gunnar Silja Blue Nilsson, recordings from the 50s. This is Norwegian saxophone player Bjarne Nerem, but I put it in Swedish because he plays with Swedish musicians. How long has this been going on? As this also, American jazz with Swedish musicians. James Moody, who played in Sweden for a couple of days, and Anders Burman, the Swedish producer and record label owner, heard this, and he went to James Moody and asked him to play with some Swedish musician, which he accepted, and it was released on this album, born later on. This is a reissue, of course, but bought in Stockholm. Accordion jazz with Lärkan, Bengt Ove Lärkfors Orchester. I have a little fling for accordion jazz, as you may have seen sometime. This is Ove Lindell's Orchester, Swing and Sweet. Not all that famous band, but pretty good. Swedish player, musician, born dead too early. Jan Johansson, playing music in his own way, spelar musik på sitt eget vis. He was a master when it came to mixing folk music and jazz. A great double album. And he's also famous for an album called Jazz på svenska, Jazz in Swedish. That album actually had some follow-ups, Jazz in Russian, and this one, Jazz in Hungarian. This one is not just as good as the two previous ones, but it's pretty good anyway. Åtta bitar Johansson, really great Jan Johansson, that also won a big prize in Sweden when it was released. Happy Jazz with the Ove Lind Quintet, live recording. One of these amazing metronome legendary years. A series that was released to show Swedish and American collaboration, and here is Harry Arnold and Quincy Jones and a Swedish radio studio orchestra. Quincy Jones was a whole lot of times in Sweden and also married to a Swedish woman. Tore Ederby, bass player, and jazz groups 1940 to 48. More Tore Ederby and more 40s jazz, and a double album set. This one that doesn't have a real sleeve, and it looks pretty bad, but I had it for many years. Live at Tanto, Julius Jakobsen, Danish pianist with Swedish musicians. I guess I have it for nostalgic reasons. Now we're coming to some albums with Stan Hasselgaard, clarinetist that played with Benny Goodman, among others. And this is Jamming at Jubilee, Stan Hasselgaard at the Jubilee show. That was a show that was for American soldiers during World War II. This is Stan Hasselgaard with Swedish musicians. Young clarinet. This is Swedish pastry, Stan Hasselgaard and Wardell Gray with Benny Goodman Septet, 1948. This is amazing swing. Also, among the last things, unfortunately, that Stan Hasselgaard did before his unfortunate death in a car accident the same year. Bengt Hallberg, famous pianist. Lars Gullin, great Swedish famous saxophone player. This is Lars Gullin and trumpet player Åke Persson. Lars Gullin again, going to be some Lars Gullin now for a while. And this is a great Lars Gullin album that I bought at the record fair. Lulle L Boys Orchestra, a band that was also a little ahead of his time, a little like Stan Kenton, but amazing band. Tore Erling Orchestra. Now we're coming to some Tore Erling albums. Tore Erling, who was maybe one of the most famous Swedish swing band leaders during the 30s, 40s and 50s. This is called God afton mina damer och herrar. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. More Tore Erling Orchestra, 40s recording. Skansenkväll med Tore Erling, different live recordings from 41 to 55. Håkan von Eichwalls Orchestra. Here we're talking early Swedish jazz, as you can see, it's 32 to 39. Jazz at the Pawn Shop, live recording from Stampen. You remember that I have been there before when in Stampen in one of my travelogues to Stockholm. I think it was the last one I did 2 years ago. Here is Arne Domnerus that I'm going to have a lot of records with now for a while. Together with Bengt Hallberg and Georg Riedel and drummer Egil Johansson and Lars Erstrand. Really great live jazz recording. Arne Domnerus, who mostly plays swing. This is Nalen Orchester, 1951 to 55. Nalen, who was still is a famous jazz club back then, and today it is for various kind of music, but it was seen as sinful, very sinful at the time. Parents said that the youngster destroyed their life by going and listening to this quote-unquote horrible jazz. Arne Domnerus, his favorite groups, 1949 to 50, amazing album, but it was also released on Dragon, one of my favorite Swedish jazz labels. Who's Harry Warren? Harry Warren songs with Arne Domnerus and company. Accordion jazz with one of the most famous accordion players in Sweden, Roland Cedermark. The Jazz Tone Mystery Band. This looks pretty strange, maybe. Beware, play this record before reading comments on the back of this jacket. This is Harry Arnold and his band in disguise. And Harry Arnold. This is Harry Arnold and the Mystery Band. And a great one, Quincy Jones and Harry Arnold in Quincy's Home Again. A real Swedish jazz classic. This Hammond organ section for jazz I can go through pretty fast because I have shown these, at least most part of it, a couple of times in its entirety. It is consisting most Jimmy Smith albums, some others also, but most is Jimmy Smith, and I've shown my Jimmy Smith collection a couple of times. But let's go through it anyway. Organ Giants compilation with Jimmy Smith, Jimmy McGriff, and Wild Bill Davis. Here now, going into Jimmy Smith, Hobo Flats Jimmy Smith, the incredible Jimmy Smith with Oliver Nelson from Verve years. We have Prayer Meeting, Jimmy Smith with Stanley Turrentine, album that I actually got from B-Size Jenny in VCLT. We have Jimmy Smith Plays the Standards. We have a really great jazz concert, Foremost. Jimmy Smith and Wes Montgomery, Further Adventures on Jimmy and Wes. Compilation on Blue Note. A compilation on Verve. Live in concert, The Incredible Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith Portrait. Previously, I usually bought a Jimmy Smith album once a year or something like that. But now it was a long time since I found a really Jimmy Smith album. So I hope to pick that up again. Jimmy Smith Swings Along with Stranger in Paradise. Organ Grinder Swing, The Incredible Jimmy Smith, Kenny Burrell, Grady Tate. The Fantastic Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith Just Friends, Sunset, bought in Gothenburg. Back in the Chicken Shack, The Incredible Jimmy Smith, also from B-Size Jenny. Jimmy Smith Keep On Coming, a modern concert. More modern. This is I'm Gotta Get Myself Together. Verve. I think this was the last Jimmy Smith album I bought. Blue Bash, Kenny Burrell, Jimmy Smith, Verve. Jazz Spectrum, Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith the Boss on Verve, also VCLT from B-Size Jenny. And one of my favorites, Jimmy Smith Live in Hamburg, Verve release, double album set. Hoochie Coochie Man, Verve with Oliver Nelson. Jimmy Smith mix compilation on MGM. Amazing Jimmy Smith Trio live. Jimmy Smith Respect with the strange cover. Now we're leaving Jimmy Smith. Jimmy McGriff, another Jimmy, the big band. Jimmy McGriff plays the music of Count Basie. Really, really great actually. Maybe one of the best Jimmy McGriff albums I heard. Bernt Egerblad, Hammond player, Swedish pianist normally. I put this in Hammond, not in Swedish, because I guess I wanted to fill out with something else other than Jimmy Smith in the Hammond section. This is Plays Organ with a Swing. Swinging Organ of Wild Bill Davis, Flying Home. And we have Wild Bill Davis and John Hodges, console sax. Eddie Lockjaw Davis, Uptown. Really, really great. And Wild Bill Davis doing his thing. Maybe I should... No, that is correct, So, that was my Hammond section. Well, I think I take a little break there. Because the next section is bebop, cool jazz, and some hard bop, and that section is kind of big, so if I'm going to take it here, the video will be a little too long. So I spare that until next time. So until next time I do a video, take care everybody, and so long.